Good afternoon, YouTube. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day, a wonderful week, a wonderful year. This is 2018. As promised, I'm doing the follow-up video after my last video, which was community, civilization, and nationhood. After reviewing the video, I realized that there were certain things that I needed to clarify. So as such, I'm not going to go on to history, culture, and religion as yet. I'm going to elaborate on the previous video, which was community, civilization, and nationhood. I'd like to apologize, and I'd like you to oblige me and bear with me if I appear to be redundant. I'm taking an unorthodox approach. Like I said, this is common sense solutions for Nigeria. It's not based on academia strictly. Obviously, I've been influenced by a lot of influences, mostly self-educated, and I'm influenced by various amount of people, but I've definitely developed my own common sense understanding of how things work. Now, before I continue, I want to take a real life example. Like I say, I like to make an analogy from small situations and project onto larger situations. Just like as we have in chemistry, we have the fact that the properties of the whole compound can be discovered from analyzing a single molecule within that compound. The properties of a single molecule contain the properties by extrapolation of the whole compound concerned. Now, the last video I had, I shared with some of my families and friends. I got some feedback, not really as much feedback as I would expect. I didn't even get any likes. I've not checked, recently I didn't get any likes. I'm not one to really, I'm not looking for likes necessarily, but I would think it would make sense. This is what I was trying to talk about when we talk about community. And that is part of what I wanted to emphasize today about community. We have to be proactive within the community to make the community a success. Each individual member within a community has to be proactive and not passive to make the community to be a success. Now, community is the basis of nationhood by expansion. And family is the basic unit of a community. Now, the effectiveness of any community is directly proportional to their ability to organize effectively. And to organize effectively is directly proportional on the ability of the individuals within that community to effectively communicate one to another. In a condition where there's miscommunication, organization is impossible, because planning is impossible. Planning is only effective when I'm aware of what the other parts, the other factors within the environment, what they are, what their process is, and what action they are going to take. So therefore, there are certain things that have to come together to make a community effective. If a community is to be effective, like we mentioned in the previous video, agriculture is the basis. Agriculture has to be going on. Now, when there's exchange of goods and services, I have to be able to rely on my fellow citizens of that community to do whatever they say or whatever they're supposed to do, so that I can plan myself accordingly. For example, if I say, today I happen to be, let's say I'm a cattle herder, for instance, and I plan a simple, basic plan like I would like my family to eat yam for dinner. A very simple example. For me to be able to affect that, I have to know that the yam grower or the yam seller will be available at a particular place or at a particular time and will be agreeable so that a means of exchange can take place, that I will be able to acquire those yams from him. So if I communicate with him and say, okay, I will be at your farm so certain time to pick up the yams, then I will have to assume, I will have to expect that the time that he told me he was going to be there, he will be there, so that when I go there, we don't miss each other. He doesn't have another plan. If he tells me one thing, okay, come to my house at 5 o'clock and pick up the yam, I'm going to have to be able to take him at his word that he's going to be there at that 5 o'clock. Otherwise, me going to there at 5 o'clock will become redundant if he's not there and went off to do something else. Therefore, the concept of integrity, the concept of being honorable as far as being true to your word comes into play. So this is how honor comes into effect. This is how communication comes into effect. I have to communication my plans so I can coordinate with your plans. And then when we are aware of each other's plans and actions to a certain extent, we have the ability to organize and make more complex coordination, organization within ourselves that will continue to be able to build up to a buoyant and vibrant community that is proactive. I have to be proactive also, and not only in waiting for my neighbor to come to me, but for anticipating my neighbor's wants and needs even before I'm told directly by my neighbor. And like I said initially, I'm going to use the process of analogy. Let's take the very smallest unit we have in the community, the family. Nobody, no man that is the head that cannot maintain order within his own family can ever maintain public office effectively. That is why it is customary that most people that run for office are usually expected to be married and settled down for the most part. That does not necessarily mean that they will be more effective, because being married bears no relation on your integrity or your moral compass or your moral standing. But the perception is still there, both consciously and unconsciously, that one who is responsible, that one will be more responsible if you're in that situation. And one that's responsible for others is used to being responsible. But the fact that we do have many parents that are not responsible or do not understand what it means to be a parent. Being a parent does not mean simply giving birth to somebody biologically or simply financially helping them or financially providing for them, which is a part of it, no question. But being a parent is more of being just like that, being an organizer, being a guide, a mentor, someone that can use their wisdom and experience and their understanding of human nature to guide the rest of the family, to create a structure whereby it's not just one structure, so that if any part of that structure falls off, if some of the parents pass away, for example, if you're in the family, if you're the father of a family, you have to create a structure so that if you're no longer there, the structure will not fall apart. If you are the only central figure and everything relies on you or the wife, if one part of this comes off, then the family will disintegrate. There has to be a system whereby each member or each joint of this family can effectively communicate to each other, can effectively coordinate to each other, and then continue the legacy, continue the moral values. You have to be able to institute certain values within this child. You have to show consistency to these children so that they can see by example not just by your words. It's easy to say things, but it's different when you lead by example, and the child himself, who has his own common sense, can see for himself. What he sees has a stronger influence on him than what a parent says to him. Because a lot of things you think your child does not notice, a lot of times they do notice. So, the ability to communicate is paramount. The ability to communicate, not just communicate, but to communicate clearly and unambiguously, to communicate effectively, clearly, concisely, is very important in the effectiveness of any community being able to function. The ability to communicate, the ability to organize bears direct relation on the ability to communicate, and the ability to organize bears direct relation on how far the community can develop economically, socially, and politically, morally, and culturally. The development of the culture, everybody has a culture. Culture is the conditions and the traditions with which you are raised up in, in which you persist in. Having a strong culture and a strong tradition, a lot of times in now today's age, religion takes the place of that, but religion and culture are intertwined. But even in the absence of religion, the morals, the traditions, the routines you do, just like they say, there's a saying that a family that eats together stays together. When you do these routines, you have these rituals, when you do actions together as a family, when you coordinate, these things strengthen the bond. There's something called a bond between units. This bond is developed over time. It's not automatic. A lot of parents, especially in Africa today, they believe in entitlement, that okay, just because they're the parent, that the child would instinctively know automatically that because they're their parent, they have their best interest. But the child may not feel that way because of the actions of the parents. Even though the parent might have a good intent in his heart, it may not be immediately apparent to the child. The parent has to consistently communicate with that child to know how that child really feels, which will now put the parent in a position to understand the needs and the wants of that individual child, which is different in all cases, because all children are not made up the same. Some children are more emotional, some children are less emotional. Some children need continual encouragement and motivation. Some children, they can be successful and progressive without as much encouragement as the next child. So all of these factors come into play, and the onus is on the parent. The failure of a child bears direct relation to the parent. A child, if you as a parent blame your child for his failure, then you're blaming yourself, because the child has your own DNA. So if it is just simply the DNA that make the child to be awkward, and it comes from you, can you see the contradiction there? The onus is on the parent. The parent has a much more responsibility than the child does. The family is the essential unit. And like I said, and by extension, the nation, the community, and then by extension, the nation can be understood right from there. Communication is paramount. Transparency, forthrightness, accountability, responsibility. All of these things must come into play. Now, in Nigeria today, it is no question that we are not a very moral society or community, both on a small and a large scale. The question there becomes, what is the reason for this demoralization? Why are we so immoral as a people? Why is it that the average Nigerian cannot answer a direct question for the most part? Because our value system is wrong. Value system is wrong. What we consider important what we consider to be the indications of success, or the indicators of a man, is very limited to basically, in this day and age, purely financial. If you have money, then you somebody. If you don't have money, you nobody. And that is the culture. No matter what we say about corruption, that is why all our talks about corruption become redundant, because it doesn't matter. Because at the end of the day, if all you respect is money, how can you preach against corruption? It's not the failure of the institutions. You can have the strongest. You can't have us. You can have all the institutions in the world. You can have EFCC. You can have the police department. You can have that, but they're never going to be effective if the moral fiber of the individuals is still individuals that make up institutions. It's still individuals. The people in the president. You can't blame the president. You can't blame the people in authority, because the individuals that come to authority still emerge out of the community. So you have to go back to the grassroots, the foundation. You have to go back to the community. First of all, our morality, our values, what we consider important. The most problem with a lot of Nigerians is because we have low self-esteem. We don't believe in ourselves or the quality of our own products or our ability to produce anything. Anything made in Nigeria is looked down upon because we don't believe in ourselves. We've allowed the narrative that the Europeans have brought to say that anything African is inferior and anything European is superior. Once we have that mentality, we already defeated. Okay? Because we can never be Europe. We can never be European. So if we believe that whatever they bring is always superior, then we're already 2 steps behind. We'll never be able to catch up to them. So therefore, for us to be able to develop, we first of all have to believe in ourselves. Just as on an individual basis, on a family basis, we have to believe that as a family, we are going to be successful. We are going to be united. We're going to support each other emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, and proactively. The main problem with Nigerians is they have a sense of entitlement without a sense of service. You want to get all the accolades for being the president, for being the chief, for being for whatever, but you don't want to put in the work. True respect is different from fear. It comes in from the effort that you made. And everybody, even the child that initially they don't understand what their parents are doing for them, when they begin to grow, they'll begin to appreciate, wow, this is what my parents were doing. They took the time to get to know me, to understand me, and they tried to, make an effort to guide me in a certain direction. And when they saw that way they were doing it didn't work, they tried a different method to get through to me. Okay? They weren't just caught up in the old world or caught up in the outside world trying to impress people or go to parties and, go all over up and down. They took their time to nurture and to maintain their home domain, which is the primary importance. When your home is weak, you have no refuge, because the home is where your self-esteem develops. That is where you rejuvenate. It's just like when you go to war and you come back. The outside world is the dog eat dog. When you come back, that is time for you to recharge, to rest, to receive the emotional fortitude, the emotional boost that's going to give you the motivation, the courage, the enthusiasm to go out there and be a success. A lot of our parents, a lot of fathers, they destroy their child's self-esteem through negative reinforcement, through telling them bad things. You don't deserve this. You're never going to amount to nothing. Or whatever you do is not good enough. Those kind of messages, when you send them to the child, they become subconscious, especially in the early stages, when the child's mind is still forming. Because the mind of a baby is more subconscious than it's conscious. Then gradually over time, it becomes more conscious and more conscious. So a lot of these things become psychological pathologies. And that is on the microcosmic scale. On the macrocosmic scale, what will build self-esteem within the community is the promotion of our culture, the promotion of our values. Don't be ashamed to wear your native dress, your native clothes, so on and so forth. These things will be able to, in doing so, they'll be able to generate a sense of self-esteem, a sense of identity. when you develop a sense of pride in who you are, a sense of strong self-esteem, a sense of a value system, then these are incentives for you to be able to define yourself outside of purely financial, purely financial paradigm. If you just preach against corruption alone, but yet when you see a man driving a Rolls Royce or whatever, you don't care where they get it from. You begin to say chairman, director, preacher. Then, in the same breath, in the next breath, you say don't steal. That's already a contradiction. Because the man knows as soon as he steals, he's going to be the big man, and nobody going to ask him what is the source of this finance, because nobody cares. Why? Because that's the value system. That is the only universal system. And like I said before, as a country, we have more things that divide us than bring us together. We're divided by religion. We're divided by ethnicity. We're divided by language. We're divided by culture. We're divided by religion. But we're only united by economy and geography. We have a similar economic interest, and we're close together by proximity. So there's a disparity right there. Until we can resolve that. In the second part, as I go on with my videos, right now in my videos, what I'm doing is I'm just touching the basic concepts. Because for any change to be effective, it takes place right here, within the mind. Once we have the right mentality and we understand what the problems are, then we can now begin to propose possible solutions for fixing these problems. But right now we're in the stage of going back to the basics, understand the basics and the foundation of the problems we have. We have a false value system. Most people, whether they're going to church, whether they're going to the mosque, wherever they're going, they're not, a lot of people is just going, not for the sake that they're so righteous or so religious, but they believe that this religion is a means to an end, to bring them material success. Everything relates to material success, and if it's not material success, is that they're scared of the repercussion of maybe going to hell or whatever, or going to hellfire or not going, you know, or some reward with which these religions are promised. So, just like most of religions say, God not looks at the outward. The difference between God and man is God doesn't look at the outward appearance. God looks at the heart. So if you're doing it that way, your motives are already wrong in the first place. And like I mentioned earlier, I'm going to get into religion, culture, and history in the next series. But I have to clarify certain things. And I'm going to continually be redundant because I have to hammer these things into our minds. The change starts with me and you and how we think and how we perceive. Our educational system. Our educational system has to be more comprehensive than what it is, to incorporate values into these children and not just train them to perform certain functions within the workforce. To be a doctor, a lawyer does not make you a good human being. You can be a doctor, a good doctor, and a very evil person. What we need to create is good citizens. Good citizens, people that have moral value, high self-esteem, cultural value, people that are tied to the land, people that have emotional attachment to the progress of their country. That is called patriotism. No country has ever risen to any reasonable, glorious height without the love of their country. Now, we can look at a country like America today. No matter what bad things you say, as people say, them being the premier power they are today, one thing every American has in common, and even foreigners that go there and later on naturalize to become American citizens, is they love their country. They all believe in the ideals and the principles that make that country unique. The principles of entrepreneurship. That is one of the current themes. The principles of freedom. The principle of self-defense and self-definition, and the principles of using your talent. America don't look down on you because of your education. They believe that whatever you do, do it well. Once you do it well, you accept it. You praised. We have a false value system. We look at someone that's a lawyer as being better than someone that's a mechanic. Each of them play a valuable role in society. If all of the body was an eye, where would the sense of feeling be? Where would the sense of taste be? Where would the smell be? And like I said, I don't want to sound preachy at all. I'm trying us to reason together. We cannot fight. We have to be honest. We have to be open. We need to tear down all the false airs, all the illusions of grandeur, all the egomania. We have to be humble if we really want to find a solution to these problems that we have as a country. And the situation is critical because these Europeans are not playing. They do not have a best interest. Just look at what's going on all over the world. Look what's happening in America now. Americans, there's a book written by Zbigniew Brzezinski. It's called The Grand Chessboard. That book, the introduction states this book is written for American primacy for the next 100 years and its geopolitical imperatives. These are people that plan hundreds, if not 1,000 years in advance. And the reason they're able to do that is because they have a structure. They're organized enough to be able to do that. If we don't get it together, we're not going to last. And Nigeria is critical in the Renaissance, in changing the narrative as far as the history of us as Africans. The history of us as Africans, what we're going to be, a large amount of that depends on us as Nigerians. We have to strengthen our communities, strengthen our families, be responsible, be accountable. We have to get rid of our sense of entitlement and get into a state of mind of being of service to our fellow people, not being entitled. We want to be the big man, we want to be the chairman, but we don't want to do the work. We don't want to put in the work that gives you the entitlement. We want to get the entitlement first before we put in the work, and that's if we put in the work at all. Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. How are you going to be proactive? How can you make somebody's life better today? Every day, everything we do matters. Just like me, I might not be doing much in making these videos, but I'm doing the little I can at this point in time. At least it's a start. I'm doing something instead of folding my arms and blaming everybody else, blaming the president, blaming the governor, blaming this. There's no light, there's no water, there's no electricity. Even if I might not be in Nigeria right now at this time, I still have love for my people. And I'm on the transition period of being there. And right now I can set the president because I'm not coming there without a plan. I'm not coming there to be no JJC or someone that does not have an idea of what direction I'm going to, so you can come and bamboozle me with your backward mentality. It's not going to happen. I'm coming with a very strong and aggressive mentality as far as how I'm going to determine my course, what I want to happen, what I represent, what I stand for, and how I can be consistent with that, not just in words alone, but with actions that back it up. Consistency. Then you begin to see I'm serious about what I'm saying. I'm not just talking the talk, that I'm actually going to walk this walk that I'm talking. And that's what we have to do. Someone has to start this. The movement has started. Do something today. Change somebody's life. Do something good. Be proactive in making things better for your brother. Don't look to take advantage of him all the time. Don't look to get over on him. At least not your brother, not those that you call, those people that you love. I can understand when we're not by extension. Like I said, I don't know. I'm not even looking at the time right now. Even if I'm not setting the standard for what morality is as far as dealing with other people. outside of our nation, outside of our community. We could get into that later. I'm still going to talk about that as far as, you know, politicians and stuff like that, you know. And it's really hard. I know a lot of times people don't have a long attention span. And when you make videos that's too long, a lot of people don't even listen to them. But if you really did care, you would do. You have to love ourselves before anyone else can love us. We have to respect ourselves. We have to want the best for ourselves. This energy becomes effective. If you hate your brother, you hate yourself. Even the scriptures say, how can you claim to love God that you do not see, but you do not even love your brother that you do see? We have to love ourselves enough for us to want to build a strong community for the children, not for ourselves. Because when we're gone, even if you're a billionaire and the structure is not there, all you politicians that carry billions and billions of dollars and put in these American banks, you're making yourself vulnerable to them. What makes you think that these Americans, these British Europeans are going to be loyal to you? They know where you get this money from. They're not naive. What makes you think that they have any loyalty to you who don't even love your own people? Why do you think they're going to care to you? You bring out that money and then you start building up their economy. I have more respect for someone that steals and implement right there within the country. Yeah, steal, build a factory, create employment, start semi-mechanized farming, build an irrigation system, produce food in the community, recycle it, because it's not the money itself, but what it does. When it begins to affect commerce and trade, when it begins to affect economic development within the society, it doesn't matter how it comes. That's a different question. But now, and like I said, I'm talking common sense now. I'm Marathi. But now that when it comes, what do you want to do with it? Just keeping it under the bed, keeping it store, taking it to a foreign country? You're only helping their society. You're only helping their economy. And that puts you in a weaker position. What happens if that bank decides to put a hold on it or not release it to you? Or you die and someone else can't get access to it and then it goes to them. You're developing their community. They develop their community because they know even if the individual wealth dies off, if the community is vibrant, effective, and buoyant, automatically their offspring will have a better chance to survive no matter what. Who? Because the general society, if we follow these rules within all the natural resources and all the things we have, that country can turn around in 10 years or 20 years. And I say 20 years because it takes 20 years to educate one generation from 0 to 20. Education is important. You have to educate whatever comes out of our mouths, and we have to lead by example. Educate the children. Build stronger communities from the grassroots up. Fathers and mothers and parents, teach your children the right values. Encourage them. Motivate them. Give them true values. Give them pride in culture, in their culture. Then all of these things will turn around. Don't just run after people and worship people just because of their financial status. Otherwise, we become hypocrites when we tell people don't steal. The only people that we steal are when you see a thief or a little thief, and then you try to lynch him in the street. What you're doing is taking out your frustrations for the inadequacy of your own life upon these people. Yet the big people that steal in the high places, nothing happens to them. They're the real thief. They're the real ones that is affecting the community. But like I said, I don't want to digress too much. These are things I will address at a later stage. And in a later series of videos, after we understand the basic concepts of all of these things and the problems that we have as a people, as a nation, and as a continent, when we understand the concepts thoroughly, then we're going to go on to the next phase of what are the possible solutions. And we together, I'm looking for feedback, like, subscribe, write your comments. Let us be an interaction. This is not about me. It's not about me. It's about a bigger cause. Any man that just lives for themselves has no direction. You have to live for something greater than you. This is about something greater. This is about a legacy. This is about the next generations that's going to come after us. Whatever we do today is the foundation of what they're going to start from tomorrow. If we leave the same situation that we're going through to them, they're going to have to deal with it. That's why I say that's why we're not taking responsibility. That's us being selfish. When we have a position, we have to utilize that position and create something better for those that come after us. Whatever we do today is the foundation of what they're going to do tomorrow. Do something today. Affect somebody in a good way. Motivate somebody. Say a word of encouragement to somebody. In this way, we make Nigeria great. In this way, we make our nation, our community better instead of waiting for the politicians. The politicians come out of the community. When the community is strong, better politicians will emerge. Instead of playing the blame game. That's what we love to do. Just like I see after this Trump thing. A lot of Nigerians agree, oh yeah, this is a shithole country. This and that and the other. There's no this, there's no that. What did you do to make the country better as an individual? We love to put the blame on other people. Oh, he's the bad guy. He's the bad one. Don't do this and that. What did you do to make that bad person better? How did you guide them? How did you affect them? You as a parent, how much did you invest in your home instead of investing in parties and impressing people that have no bearing, that after they finish drinking your wine and drinking your beer, or you call Colinton or Wazoo or Sunny Ade and you spray them with millions of dollars and then they go home to their wife and live their life. Meanwhile, you don't make that same investment in your children's education, in your children's exposure, in their refinement, in making sure that they understand the kind of world they live in, taking them to different places. You rather impress other people. You rather chase women all up and down. You'd rather let them control you and spend more time having a relationship with women than you even have with your own children. A lot of parents don't even know their own children. They don't know how they think. They don't know feel. They don't know what motivates them. And they can't even give them no advice as far as what direction they need to go. Because what direction each individual needs to go depends on their own individual talent. What are they good at? Are they good at speaking? Are they good at sports? Are they good at mathematics? What do they like doing? Do you know that about your child as a parent? Or you just want them to be a lawyer? You just want them to be a doctor? And if they tell you they want to be a mechanic, you just put them down because mechanic. If there's no mechanic, can you fix your car? We have to start being realistic with our expectations. We have to really understand things and not just understand things on the surface of what they are. Now today, as time goes on, I was trying to speak a little bit faster today, to get a lot of things, out there. And like I said, I don't write anything down because I'm trying to be spontaneous. But I have in my head basically the topics that I want to talk about. And I don't need to write it down because these are things I'm passionate about. I'm a very passionate person, though I don't necessarily express that at all times. At time to time I do. I'm a very passionate person. I'm someone that has a lot of passion, a lot of emotion about things that I believe. And it's time for me to express those things. And that's what I'm doing now with these series of videos. Now I'm getting to about almost 40 minutes. It's going to take a hell of a time to upload and for me to put out there. But I think I've covered a few topics. Like I said, like the video, subscribe. That's not going to take anything out of you. That's being proactive. The more you do that, the more this channel will grow. The more other people will be exposed to it. That's the least you can do. You understand? Put a comment. If you don't like it, dislike it. Let me know. I'm open to constructive criticism. You can tell me, I don't like your video. I don't like what you're saying. I don't like the way, you move your hands, you scratch your face, you do this. Fine. I'm open because I don't know it all. I'm just trying to do something. And what I understand and the knowledge I have, I'm willing to put it out there. And I'm willing to enter into a logical and reasonable dialogue and discourse and engage anybody that's willing to engage. We can discuss these topics and we can build from there. Let us make Nigeria great. Not again, but for the first time. Let us make each other great. Let us make our home great. Let us make our community great. Let us make our brother great. Let us make our sister great. Let's make our daughter great. Let's be proactive in affecting each other's lives and not just wait for people that's sitting in the office and pointing fingers at them. And I'm going to close again with these same famous JFK words. Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. Thank you all. God bless. And see you next time.